Hey everybody, Arthur here. This is Pickups from the Void, third semester of 2022. I've got some cool ones this time, a lot of obscure stuff as usual. So stick around, grab some popcorn, because we've got over 40 games to cover this time. So here we go. Welcome to the channel. This is From the Void. Okay, the 3DS is the focus of the channel right now as the eShop's closing date is approaching, right? So let's start with that. First, one of the mystery boxes. This is actually the last ever produced officially 3DS game. There are actually two games. Talking about Go-Go Coco-Polo Dual Pack. This physical comes from Limited Run, and the cool thing here is that one of these games was resurrected from the void. Yeah, the first Go-Go Coco-Polo was a DSiWare exclusive, never ported over to the 3DS eShop. So this is pretty cool, and the other one is a 3DS exclusive that was digital only until now. The two games are great, they are definitely hidden gems with very unique gameplay. You roam around maze-like stages trying to find all enemies, then scratch them up to get them to follow you, then run for your life all the way back to the snap plant to get them swallowed up. It's a pretty odd game, but a lot of fun too. Happy to have them physically for preservation. Next is one that I've been looking for a long time, has climbed in price a lot in my region, and it took me a long time to find one in a fair price. Talking about Hey Pikmin. This title had a mild reception. It was definitely not what Pikmin fans were hoping for as the next entry in the series. This is a side-scroller style, different from the other entries in the series, but bringing back core ideas like managing a group of Pikmin with many different colors and abilities to find your way and collect materials. The major criticism it got is that everything would be better on a proper 3D Pikmin, and although I agree, I still think this is a pretty cool title and one of the few first-party 3DS games that I was still missing. So I'm happy to add this one. Then next is a rather obscure, kind of a hidden gem game too. It's Crush 3D. This one I featured in my 3DS physical only list of games. It's a 3D puzzle platformer that will require you to manipulate the platforms by using the crush action, which flattens the surfaces down to 2 dimensions. And if you use this while in top-down view, platforms will change their heights. These are fun mechanisms to use, given that you can crush easily and there is little to no penalty for experimenting anywhere you want. The platforming itself is simple but perfectly functional, so this is an interesting game for sure. It's also very, very cheap. Following up with Centipede Infestation. This is actually a pretty well made reimagining of the arcade classic shooter Centipede. It's pretty faithful to it while still presenting a modernized take on it. The gameplay though is a little repetitive after a while, but I found it fun. The objective is always to wipe out all insects on screen, including the more threatening titular Centipede, with a nice variety of secondary weapons too. This is a solid game for sure. It's not going to blow you away or anything, but a fun one for fans of arcadey shooters, and it's cheap too. I think this is only available in Americas though. Then next up we have Tetris Axis. This is another physical-only 3DS game that I got for that video, and it's a pretty great Tetris title, with over 20 modes offering classic Tetris gameplay, as well as more modernized ones such as Fever, which is pretty cool, and some very gimmicky ones that are cool to play once and never again, that use the augmented reality capability of the 3DS, a rarely used feature of the system. And this is a cheap game too, so I think it's worth it for a fan of the most classic of all puzzle games. And next is one that I believe is a very underrated title, Pac-Man and Galaga Dimensions. This is a compilation of 6 games, 3 Pac-Man titles and 3 Galaga titles. We have the original Pac-Man as well as the original Galaga from the 1980s. Then we have 2 much more modern games from the Xbox 360 era, which were both very well received. Pac-Man Championship Edition, which is a pretty excellent modernization of the classic Pac-Man style of gameplay, and Galaga Legions, which is pretty much the same idea but applied to Galaga, keeping the gameplay classic but modernizing it for a fast-paced action with psychedelic and shiny graphics. And to top it all off, each franchise received a new and exclusive entry to this compilation here. On the Pac-Man side we have Pac-Man Tilt, which is a platformer that uses the gyroscopic functionality of the 3DS, which I realize some will find too gimmicky, but this plays rather well and is a fun change of pace for the package of games here. This is a solid 7 or so. And finally we have Galaga 3D Impact, which turns the gameplay into a first-person on-rails shooter, but keeps the diverse enemy patterns of the series and presents a cool challenge. This is better than Pac-Man Tilt and a really solid entry here. The entire compilation is great and I could not disagree more to the scores on the 6 range it got. To me this is no less than an 8 and it's another physical only game for the 3DS. And next is the best one I've got on the 3DS and arguably the coolest one in the entire list. And I intentionally put it on a vertical position here so that it doesn't give it away. This is Fire Emblem Fates Special Edition. I swear, I've been looking for this one for so long. This is very rare to come across here in Brazil, and it's a beautiful special edition. It comes with a gorgeous art book, which is my favorite thing about special editions, a little case for your 3DS, which is cool and useful too, and most importantly the cartridge, which looks different in black and white and contains not only Birthright and Conquest inside, but also the DLC Revelation. And this is soon to become the only legit way to acquire Revelation, which is the ending of the Fate story, so this special edition is bound to become much more expensive as soon as the eShops close. I don't need to explain the game, I don't think. It's Fire Emblem, it's at the top of tactical RPGs, you know it, but suffice it to say, it's great. It's not among my favorite entries in the series, but that's okay, it's still a great game. I'm really happy to have this, and if I have to, I will sell this if things don't pick up with the channel and all that, because I already had the digital of Revelation and the other 2 scenarios physically, so I can either sell those 2 or sell the special edition if I'm badly in need of cash in the future. Now moving on to the DS titles, I got a few cool ones this time, starting off with Resident Evil Deadly Silence. This one is a remake of the original Resident Evil that was pretty well received. It's a faithful port as far as the story goes, but this adds a few new features like improved controls, but most importantly Rebirth mode, which is a remixed version of the entire game with new puzzles and completely different enemy locations, making it much harder. I know Director's Cut also has a rearranged mode, but I think this one is completely different, and you can also tackle it in classic mode if you want, but Rebirth is why I got this. It's like Ocarina of Time Master Master's Quest. I love this kind of thing. Anyway, great remaster here of one of my favorite games ever, so I'm happy to have this. Then up next is Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. I've played most games in the series so far, so I've been looking for Joker 2 for a while because it's kind of expensive, and I finally found one in a great price. This side series is kind of the Dragon Quest take on Pokemon, as you scout for monsters to recruit to your team and even fuse them together for new monsters. You can even trade them with other players. And it's a masterfully well done RPG with a complete story and everything. This is like a 9 out of 10, great game. Next, I found the sequel to this one in a previous video. I've been looking for both of them, and it took me months to find the original in a good price. This is Nanostray. This first entry in the series is more akin to your regular basic shoot 'em up. It's actually pretty cool to see the evolution of the series here. I now own all of them. In Nanostray 2, they add a bunch of signature shooting styles that return later. Then Nano Assault really ramps up the originality, turning the series into a twin-stick shooter in a cellular level, which makes it completely unique. But I don't mean this as a knock on the original. Nanostray 1 is a pretty great shoot 'em up. You have regular shots and a more powerful one that consumes energy, that can be replenished by grabbing the coins dropped from defeated enemies, which generates a great balance here. This is a solid shooter for the DS for sure. And to close off this section is one that climbed in price a lot. I think this is a rare one, at least where I live. Ace Attorney Investigations, Miles Edgeworth. I found this one in pretty great shape, including the manual, which is great because I had already given up on finding this game, then suddenly found it completely unexpectedly for a great price. Okay, this is a little different from regular Ace Attorney games, as it focuses only on the investigation gameplay and not on the court of law cross-examination battles. And it adds a few welcome features to the investigation, such as the logical system, where you can link together pieces of evidence towards a logical goal. This is pretty cool, I liked it a lot. You can also freely roam the crime scenes with Miles, which is also not how other games do it, and I enjoyed it. The stories and crimes are interesting, and there is a good amount of humor as usual. This is a pretty great title here, I'm happy to have it. Okay, now moving on to the second section, beginning with the PlayStation 4, we have The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. This is the deluxe version that comes with a pretty great manual / art book and 3 codes for the soundtrack. And I'm giving 2 of them away. I already downloaded one of these, so you guys can go ahead and grab the other 2. Let me know if you got it in the comments if you want. Before we get to the game, let me just say, I know that the Switch and PC versions of this game are better graphically for some reason, but all my Legend of Hero games are on the PlayStation ecosystem, so I went with this one anyway. Trails from Zero is a Legend of Heroes game that stayed in Japan exclusive for a really long time. It was originally a PSP game. It's a turn-based RPG, a pretty great one too, with a very interesting story and cool combat mechanics. I'm really enjoying it so far. Pretty awesome game, Trails from Zero. Next up we have Wipeout Omega Collection. This physical has a cool and shiny artwork which caught my attention. I'm not sure if all copies have this though. This collection includes Wipeout 2048, Wipeout HD, and its DLC Wipeout HD Fury. Pretty cool games, all of them, with enhanced graphics and faster load times here. I initially wanted to feature this one in my picking up the slack for F-Zero video, but I decided to cut the more famous titles because it was already getting too big. I did enjoy all of these entries. It would have ranked really high on that list. These are great. And the final PlayStation 4 game this time is Control Ultimate Edition. This one is pretty well known, I won't say much about it. It's a pretty awesome action game with a unique and wonderful mechanism of manipulating your surroundings with telekinesis, which feels great as a gameplay feature. It is also much less linear than I expected beforehand, which I enjoyed a lot. This Ultimate Edition comes with the DLC and also enhanced graphics and performance, which is awesome, plus it's forwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. Now moving on to PlayStation 5 games. The first one here is Horizon Forbidden West. This is a must-have on the system and one that I refuse to explain. Everyone knows what this is about. Pretty fantastic game, a phenomenal sequel. I'm enjoying it a lot. Enough said, moving on. Next we have Ghostwire Tokyo. I saw the lukewarm reception this one got, but the horror setting in Tokyo was still attractive to me, so I decided to give it a try. It's definitely an immersive setting with cool enemies, though I do agree that it's kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to combat, and the pacing of the game is also not great, but it's still enjoyable. I'm liking it so far. Going back to Nintendo consoles, just one GameCube game this time. That's Mega Man X Command Mission. I got this one in mint condition for a fair price. It comes with a colored manual, which I always enjoy. It's a great physical copy here. And the game, believe it or not, is a RPG. Yeah, a Mega Man RPG. I was instantly interested when I found out, and it's a pretty solid one. I only played the beginning so far to get this footage, but it's clear to see that it's a solid RPG. I hear it's on the easy side, but that's fine. This got scores on the 8 range. I'm a big fan of Mega Man, so it's really cool to play the more obscure titles in the series like this one. Then we move to Wii games. First one here, Speed Racer, the video game. This one was on the F-Zero project, pretty great futuristic racer, very surprisingly so, consider it's a movie tie-in. It's a very unique style of gameplay. You can do all sorts of stunt moves to hit other cars in spectacular fashion. It's pretty cool, so try this one out if you're into fast racing games. And then a really weird and obscure game. Have you ever heard of Monster Lab for the Wii? Yeah, this is a really odd entry in the list, I know, but it's a pretty great game if you give it a fair shake. Problem is that a lot in it may turn you off. It may seem childish in premise and graphics, but if you don't mind or can look past all that, you can find a great game here. It's hard to categorize Monster Lab though. It's mostly divided into 2 gameplay sections, the combat, which is turn-based, but this is definitely not a RPG, and then you go back to your lab where you mix parts you collect by defeating enemies to create new monsters or improve existing ones. It's much more fun than all of that sounds probably. Everything is well made here, so the game becomes very enjoyable to play. Now let's move on to Microsoft, only 2 titles, both on the Xbox Classic. First off is Quantum Redshift. Yeah, look at this cover, completely ruined by this huge ass sticker. But take a look at what's written there. Microsoft company store purchase not to be sold. It even has the employee number on it. If anything had to ruin the cover, I'm fine if it's something like this. Anyway, this is another one that I feature in the F-Zero video. This is among the better ones actually, though the presentation is definitely lacking, especially in the character models and cutscenes, very unappealing. But the racing is on point with a nice balance of power-ups and cool level design for the tracks, and simply just enjoyable. This is a pretty obscure fast racer exclusive to the Xbox that I'm happy to have. Then next, quite a sought after game, this is Blinx, the Time Sweeper. I got the Platinum Hits version for this one. I know a lot of collectors out there hate the re-releases with different colors, but I do not mind them at all. I actually like that a few games stick out among the crowd like that. And gameplay wise, Blinx here is a really different kind of 3D action platformer, exclusive to the Xbox, partially because of the time manipulation powers that Blinx has. He can stop time, slow it down, make it faster, or rewind it. This isn't your traditional platformer, not at all actually. It presents a real challenge. You will need to backtrack and collect power-ups and money because later levels are insanely hard and demanding. It's not a casual platformer, this game, not even close, but I enjoyed it a lot. If you're looking for something different in this genre, this is it. I will be looking for Blinx 2 now, but it's more rare and expensive, unfortunately. Only one PlayStation 2 game this time, Ring of Red. The manual here is pretty great. I like this physical version a lot. And as for the gameplay, Ring of Red is a very obscure strategy game. The setting here is an alternative World War II scenario, with Japan having been split into 3 parts, and as a good Japanese-focused warfare game, it is full of mechs. Hell yeah. Very front mission like. The battles are split into 2 parts, the grid-based chess-like gameplay as usual, and the actual combat going right into the battle. It's still a strategic gameplay in this part. You have only indirect control over your machine, but it's pretty cool, and despite being slow, very slow actually, it has quite an addictive quality to it. It's hard to explain. This is a very odd game, only for hardcore strategy fans, but definitely a great one of these for the PlayStation 2. It was very well received back in the day. Now it's been a while since I've added any PlayStation 3 games to my collection, so I've got 2 of them this time. First off is the House of the Dead Overkill Director's Cut. I don't think I need to say much about this one, right? It's the House of the Dead on rail shooter classic gameplay through and through. Overkill came out on the Wii first, then on the PlayStation 3 2 years later as an extended cut with HD graphics. Still ugly though, but that's okay. I mean, who plays these games for graphics? It's all about killing hordes of zombies, and that it has in abundance. I like me some of these every once in a while, so I'm happy to add this one, and it's a pretty cheap title. And the final one I found really cheap. I know this is a game that has not been received very well. This is a Golden Axe Beast Rider. Listen, I just wanted to see this one for myself, alright? I know it's probably terrible. I haven't tried it yet. This is the trailer you're seeing, so I don't know how bad it is yet. My objective here is just to see what direction they decided to take with the Golden Axe series for myself with this entry. Nothing more. I'm not aiming to play this all the way through unless I like it, which is unlikely. But let's see. It was super cheap, $4 or so, so it's fine even if I hate it later, because I really like to see a series evolution or devolution or whatever. Okay, now moving on to the final section, the Switch games. This first one, you may look at it and think, well, wasn't that a awful game? Terrible? Well, it was in the beginning, but they fixed it. They listened to the criticism and pretty much fixed everything to the point where this game is now a great game. This is Baldo the Guardian Owls, the Three Fairies edition. Okay, this game came out pretty much broken. The major problem, I think, were the combat animations, which were delayed, resulting in a very unenjoyable gameplay, and they totally fixed that. Baldo now swings his sword faster and steps forward while swinging, which makes his moves more efficient, and it feels really great. There were also problems with saving the game. It would save very sporadically, making a lot of people lose their progress. Now it saves all the time. The map is a lot better now too, and many other issues were also addressed. The only thing I think needed to be better are the menus. Using your menus is kind of obtuse, but it's something you get used to after a few hours of playing, so not a major problem. So yeah, I gotta say, I'm having a lot of fun with Baldo. I enjoyed the chunk I've played so far very much. This is a challenging game actually, no walk in the park at all. The dungeons have a lot of challenging sections and in great ways. This is an awesome 3D Zelda-like right here nowadays. I'm super glad I own this, even more so because it was free. Yeah, it's funny actually. This is what happened. I ordered another game from Pix'n Love and they just sent me this one instead. So I got in contact with them. They were super nice and sent me the other one free of charge. So this ended up being a freebie. And I was already considering buying Baldo, so it turned out great. And next is the game that I bought instead of Baldo. Again, I'm not complaining, alright? They made it right and I ended up with a free game, but this is Blazing Chrome. This one came with a nice instruction booklet, and I believe it also has a limited run version that I missed out on. Blazing Chrome is about 95% the same as old school Contra titles, which is great because it's been a long while since we've had a great Contra game. And this is definitely that, and a bit more approachable than Contra titles tend to be, especially the older ones. The stages are still insanely challenging, and losing all your lives still results in some loss of progress, but there are no continued limits, and each stage has a few checkpoints that will not require you to start from the beginning, even when you get a game over. The weapons are also rather different, all very useful and creative. This is an outstandingly well done title of this kind that Konami seems completely unable to do nowadays, so to me this is totally fair game. I really enjoyed Blazing Chrome, try it out. And next is one of my favorite ones in this entire list for sure, and pretty surprisingly so. This is Phenotopia Awakening. First off, let me address the form factor here. This physical comes from Premium Edition, which always includes not one, but two sleeves with their releases, and each one of them with different artwork than the case itself, which is pretty cool. They also spared no expenses on the manual. This is the thickest manual in any Switch game I own. Full of artwork and extra information. I absolutely love it. Premium Edition surprised me in a great way. I am definitely looking forward to the next releases. So back to Phenotopia. This is such a great game. It's a true adventure full of hidden things to discover, well crafted in every single way, in the exploration, in the puzzle solving, in the combat, everything. This is a magnificent title, like a 9 or 9.5, no exaggeration. Do check this one out, Phenotopia Awakening. This next one is really something else. This is Double Kick Heroes. This physical comes from Red Art Games. It carries a great manual with information on the characters who are all part of the same band, riding around zombie apocalypse, fighting them off with the power of metal. What more do you need? And quite a challenging one on the difficulty that adds an extra button, but a bit too easy on the previous one, so that's a complaint I have about this game. There needed to be another difficulty between these two, because the extra button is really necessary for the game to become interesting, but it's immediately too hard. Other than that, Double Kick Heroes is pretty great. And next we have a great shooter, Mushihime-sama. This is from Limited Run and comes with a nice manual with some cool looking artwork and a nice backstory to the characters. Mushihime-sama is a top-down bullet hell style shooter, so it's a more niche game, but really great if you're into those. You move slowly when you're shooting and become more nimble when you're not. And having access to both speeds is a great additional layer to the gameplay, because sometimes you need to sprint away from incoming bullets, and other times it's better to move just slightly to avoid the bullet hell, which is easier when you're slower. This is a pretty great game, and it's a kind of a cult classic too. Then next, the absolutely lovely A Short Hike. This physical is from Super Rare and it's a great one. The cover art is very nice looking and colorful. It includes a manual and the typical Super Rare cards and even a map of the island, which is so cool. And this is the chillest game ever, probably. The setting here is simple and much more fun than it may sound. Alright, you are supposed to climb to the summit and, more importantly, have as much fun as you can during the hike. To do so, you'll need as many gold feathers as you can collect. Each one will allow Claire to flap her wings once more, essentially functioning like an extra jump. They also serve as a stamina bar to climb rocks, but if you run out of feathers, Claire will just glide her way down, therefore there is no damage, no life bar, no enemies, no urgency. It's all about taking in the environment, enjoying the journey at your own pace, and doing whatever side quests you desire. A Short Hike is entirely relaxing and joyful. This is highly recommended. This next one is from Limited Run, a great and unusual title here, Lair of the Clockwork God. I covered this recently on my Switch Hidden Gem series. Check those out, playlist on screen now and in the description. This is a really different one. Lair of the Clockwork God fuses together side-scroller platforming with classic style adventuring, and I mean the point and click type. And this is completely contradictory, right? Those two things don't go together. their pacing is quite opposite, but it works here because of the characters and their interactions. Seriously, the game is hilarious. Dan here is done with the brainy point and click thing and has decided to embrace the modern trends of indie platformer darlings, while Ben is completely opposed to the idea, sticking to the traditional adventuring, so he refuses to jump off a ledge, run, or collect floaty things. This friendly clash between the characters is handled in a great way, not only through the brilliant writing, but also in the gameplay that has you switching between the two characters, many times having to solve the same area by using both of them. The constant change of pace keeps the game fresh for the entire duration, but be advised that this is heavier on the classic style adventuring, so this is more for a fan of point and click games, but a phenomenal take on the genre that I highly recommend for anyone not completely opposed to this type of game. Give it a go, Lara of the Clockwork God, a true hidden gem. This next one I reviewed. They sent me a review copy on Steam, but I liked it so much that I decided to give them their due compensation and bought the beautiful Switch version. This is Infernax. I love this cover art. It's kinda doing the famous Doom art and it looks gorgeous with the colors and all. Infernax is a side-scroller Metroidvania that meshes two styles of gameplay from two different games and reinvents them. The locations are grim and eerie like a Castlevania game, and it even has the day and night cycle straight from Simon's Quest. On the other hand, it gives off a Zelda 2 feeling in the combat gameplay, all about positioning with the need to use moves like your crouched attack and be mindful of enemies doing the same. And one of my favorite things about Infernax is the setting. This game gives off a really brutal middle-age vibe. The theme of religion and faith is very present, giving the entire game a sinister tone, and on top of all that comes the morality conundrum system with two options for dealing with each problem you may face, and those are not black and white choices, which makes them engaging and pretty cool. This is a fantastic game with a lot of secrets to discover, and they just released a DLC for it too, which I still have to play, so I will replay the game on the Switch, then tackle the DLC. Anyway, check out Infernax, pretty awesome game here. This next one is a bit more mainstream, a pretty awesome game too. This is Live Alive. I've always been interested in this game, which was a Japan exclusive Super Famicom title, but it has a fan translation that I've been meaning to play for a long time, but now I can go straight to this one, which is a beautiful remaster of the original with that 2.5 Octopath Traveler look that Square Enix is applying to a lot of franchises now, and it's been working really well because these graphics are perfect match for a classic style RPG like this. Live Alive though is quite a different game in premise. It divides itself into 7 stories, all taking place in different time periods and locations with different protagonists, and I love this format for an RPG. Octopath Traveler is a clear similar situation, and even Dragon Quest IV does that in a great way as well. I love this. I think this side of Square Enix that is bringing these games back to life is freaking fantastic. Too bad they also have another side that is doing quite the opposite, pursuing NFT initiatives and launching microtransactions filled chocobo racing games or completely unwarranted games as a service games that fail in record speeds. I mean, Square Enix is completely bipolar. It's such a weird company. I hope that this side wins more and more because this game is freaking awesome. Moving on to another one from Premium Edition. This is Cathedral. This is another one from Premium Edition with the double sleeves. Pretty cool again. I am liking Premium Edition style, I gotta say. The manual this time is even better looking, so shiny, pretty cool. And so is the game. This is a great one. It's very reminiscent of Shovel Knight in graphics, sound and gameplay, but this is more like a Metroidvania than a stage-based action platformer like Shovel Knight. And it works really well for Cathedral. Everything is spot on. Give it a try, you're not regretting it. Now the Genious Baba Is You. This one is from Fangamer and the physical is very good looking. It comes with a poster and some stickers, but I would prefer a manual, but whatever. Baba Is You is a one-of-a-kind puzzle game aimed more at hardcore puzzle fans because this is an insanely challenging game. You start off controlling this dog-like creature named Baba, but that's only true because somewhere on the screen is a text that reads Baba Is You. You can mess around with the text by pushing them. For instance, you can switch the word Baba with the word wall, and now you control all of the walls. It's crazy, and soon it becomes much crazier. Each world will introduce new programming logics for you to mess around with, and like I said, it soon becomes very hard. But this is a masterful puzzle game. It blew my mind. We're almost done here. Next we have Scourgebringer. This physical is from East Asia Soft and Play Asia. I think that's the only physical of this game for the Switch, but it's completely in English and comes with a nice manual. The game deserved way more recognition than it got. It's an excellent action roguelike with one of the smoothest gameplay in the genre for sure. Roguelikes have been flooding the market recently, which is not such a great thing because it's hard to find one with well-made balance, but Scourgebringer certainly fits the smaller pool of well-done roguelikes. But that's just if you're up to the challenge, because this is a rather relentless game. The gameplay though is immediately enjoyable and addictive with hectic action, which will certainly appeal to a hardcore action fan. Next is one that I talked about extensively. I have a whole video on it, so I'll be brief this time, but this is Demon Throttle. This is the special reserve version of this game. There is also a regular retail version already out. It's cheaper but doesn't include the manual, and the manual is a big plus in this version. It even has a cheat code for some great power-ups, but both versions are fine. And it's great that this one came out on retail because this is that game that is not found in digital version. It is not on the Switch eShop and will never be if Developer Digital is to keep their word on it. It was a weird and controversial idea from them there. I talked all about that in the video I mentioned, but the game itself is simply great. Awesome top-down shooter, old school style, but plays really well. I enjoyed it all the way through. And finally, one of the highlights for sure, the big mystery box. It took me a while to find one in a good price, and I'm very late to the party, I know. This is Metroid Dread. look at this. This is a pretty awesome collector's edition. It comes with a steel book, which I like a lot, as well as a regular case, then a set of cards, which are high resolution artwork from previous games in the franchise, and finally, below all that, the one thing I look for the most on collector's editions, the art book. Oh my god, this comes with a whole retrospective on all non-prime mainline games on the series. Pretty awesome, plus a huge section on Dread. This is a thick art book. I love it. And as for the game, what can I say, right? It's a fantastic title. I have only played the beginning so far, but it's clear from that and the overall reception it got that this is among the best Metroids, which is saying a lot. And that closes this edition of Pickups from the Void. I hope you liked it. Hope you found out about a few games you never heard about. That's the major goal here. If you did like, consider subscribing for more. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.